Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. About 7 months after the Rust incident, a shooting occurred in Austin, Texas that I covered extensively. I was surprised that within 10 days of that incident, the incident that claimed the life of the elite rider Mo Wilson, investigators had already done the ballistics and had matched the rounds that struck the victim with the caliber of gun that Caitlin Armstrong allegedly owned or used. 10 days. 10 months after the Rust incident, and the district attorney tells us the forensic analysis of the weapon is, quote, still outstanding, end quote. In my experience in true crime, justice delayed is justice denied. It's often not a good sign when it takes a long time for something or nothing to happen. We've seen bad outcomes in the Suzanne Morphew case, just as we did in the case that set the tone for leading the public on a grand runaround, the JonBenet Ramsey case. Personally, I don't understand what is so complicated about this crime scene. Before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment. If you're enjoying this coverage, be sure to hit the thanks button. Also, at the end of this episode, I'm going to be telling you about a controversial, I think quite exciting and interesting new series that I'll be covering as well. So stay tuned for that. And let's get started. So as crime scenes go, this one-roomed, sort of wooden, carpetless church seems fairly basic, doesn't it? I mean, compare this to the Ramsey house or the Chris Watts house or the labyrinth that is the Madeleine McCann case, that whole, the apartment complex and the surrounding area. So if you think about this church, this bare room, kind of like Mother Hubbard's cupboard, it's very, very basic. And not only that, there are also plenty of witnesses, right? It's not as though there's this big mystery about what happened. There were people standing right there and saw what happened. But I guess this is where things might actually get complicated, especially if some witnesses are reliable and some aren't, especially if some witnesses are saying, I saw ABC, while others who are there say, I saw XYZ. And if we're being fair, it's probably fair to say that the crime scene extended beyond the confines of the church. Do you agree with that? In theory, the entire set, the entire Rust set, and the entire production crew are also part of the focus of the investigation. And that then sends sort of it has a rippling effect where the people that are involved, the size of this investigation now becomes huge. Do you agree with that? Even so, it's hard to believe that in an accidental shooting, the investigation is still ongoing after 10 months and no charges have been filed. Whereas in the murder of Mo Wilson, where the main suspect went on the run for 43 days in a foreign country and added another dimension to the case, charges have already been filed and the case may be heard as soon as October. You sort of get a feeling that the Caitlin Armstrong case, which happened several months after the Rust incident, is going to be solved, sorted, done and dusted, resolved in a legal sense, even before charges are filed in the Rust case, if they ever are. Now, according to the Santa Fe DA, quote, still outstanding is forensic analysis of the weapon, a review of data from Baldwin's cell phone, and more from the FBI and state medical examiners, end quote. Now, we do know that Alec Baldwin took some time to hand over his cell phone, but that is a shitload that is still outstanding. In the Chris Watts case, the phone data review was completed within about 4 months. One has to wonder, if so much still hasn't been done, what has been done? I also can't help wondering why it feels like nothing is happening. Is this the result of high-powered attorneys getting involved, as we saw in the Ramsey case. Everything takes 10 times longer, and when something eventually happens, it's basically to say that nothing is. According to ABC News, quote, "The screening process by prosecutors will begin once sheriff's investigators receive the information and complete their supplemental reports. To expedite the process, Carmack Altwies, that is the DA, has retained a special prosecutor, retired 9th Judicial District Attorney Andrea Reeb from eastern New Mexico, who has more than 2 decades of experience," end quote. It sounds like the Santa Fe's version of Lou Smith, doesn't it? Why does someone have to be brought out of retirement to prosecute a case? Another aspect that I can't shake off is the glittering carrot that remains in the aftermath of this incident. It's this idea that shooting is supposed to resume, that Rust the movie is still going to happen. And so all those connected to it still want that to take place. They don't want to lose face. They don't want to be out of favor with the producers by setting a foot wrong, by saying something wrong. And so you have this idea that if the shoot is supposed to resume, shooting of the film, I mean, it's also difficult to believe that if someone is in a rush to complete Rust, that same someone would set the legal machinery intentionally to super slow motion. There are cases, of course, where justice took a long time and ultimately was served. Patrick Frazee is one. Another, which is still hard to call, is Lori Vallow, but that does seem to be moving in the right direction. Now, according to ABC News, quote, "In records released so far, investigators described complacency, disorganization, and neglected safety standards in the making of the low-budget movie," end quote. If the primary flaw in Rust was the rush to get it done, the primary flaw in the investigation is just how long it's taking for nothing to happen. So I'm not going to take it further than that. Something that I am working on at the moment. If this channel hasn't shed enough subscribers as it is, I think it's time maybe to really shake things up. And we're going to be talking about the very divisive figure, Alex Jones. And I see that there's something like 25% of folks on this channel that are supporters of Alex Jones. And maybe it's time that we go where angels fear to tread. There are a lot of you who don't know what it means to be the most authentic voice in true crime. And what I think that maybe means is maybe you're in the wrong place. You shouldn't really be here. You hate mainstream news. Social media is gospel to you. Well, then, maybe you don't even need to listen to that series. I've got to say, in a channel that is called True Crime Rocket Science, that true is about the truth, and the rocket science is about intelligent people. We want intelligent people here. I don't only want to be an authentic channel. I don't only want my message to be authentic, but I also want my community to be authentic. And if you're interested in that conversation, you're welcome to join it. If you're not interested in that conversation, if you're interested in conspiracies, this really isn't the channel for you. And maybe it's time that we actually start to trim away all of that sort of fluff and nonsense and kind of get busy dealing with reality. We can't actually afford to be mucking about in nonsense and nonsensical things. And so maybe it's time to get a little bit more serious in terms certainly of this channel. So look out for that. I'm still working on it. Bear in mind, tomorrow will be the next episode in Elvis Presley. So I'll see you guys for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.